Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
All right, good to be with all of you. We are in our third week here in this new year and this text on how to meditate on stages of the path. I hope that you had a good week, bringing that meditation into your daily life, focusing on the benefits of this rare and precious human birth favorable to Dharma practice. Such a incredible opportunity each moment offers, and that was the third point from last week, that literally every moment of our life can be meaningful. And tonight we'll get into the third aspect of this rare and precious human birth favorable to Dharma practice. The first one was recognizing what is exactly a rare and precious human birth favorable to Dharma practice. I say that very specifically, certainly not all human life. And then that was the first week. Second week, the benefits. And tonight we're going to explore how rare it is, just how incredibly rare this opportunity is. So with that, we'll get right to the text. Rare and difficult to attain is the section. The third meditation on the precious human life looks at how such a life is rare and not easy to attain. It's important to reflect on this. Otherwise, you might think it's okay if I don't practice Dharma in this life. I can do it in my next life. This is unwise because a precious human life is difficult to come by. There's no certainty we will get another one next time. So as we get into the description of the meditation, I want to just remind people, sometimes we have some new people here as well, that we really want to bring this teaching to everyone in a way that's practical to them, regardless of their spiritual belief, tradition, what their motivation is. So this is going to bring in the reflection on multiple lives, past life and future lives. So that's going to be for people as a Buddhist view that have a system in their mind that believes in such things. And then I'm going to back it up a bit for people who, don't really think that, they don't know about this past or future life, or doesn't make sense to them, and how we can approach this same meditation in a way that just is focused on this life. And so first we'll do it, the way it's written in the book, then we'll back it up. And I think both ways are really practical and can help you whichever view you might have. Okay, let's get to it. So, right to the next part. So once you're settled and you engage in meditation, and again, we're bringing these meditations not simply for a formal practice in the morning, but really to be doing this throughout the day, to really, like through last week, noticing how beneficial your life is, what you're able to do to transform everyday situations into real meaning and purpose. This week, it'll be really noticing just how incredibly rare your particular life is and how difficult it is to attain. So we can notice that through our daily interactions with others and the life that we're living. So we'll read it as the key points that one would reflect upon in a meditation, but we're really designed this course to be able to apply it throughout the day. There are 3 reasons for understanding that a precious human life is rare and difficult to attain. The first reason is in terms of its causes. A precious human life is a result of numerous causes. The fact that we now have one indicates that we created those causes in our past lives. The main cause is ethical conduct, refraining from negative actions such as the 10 non-virtues, keeping whatever precepts we have taken, and creating virtuous karma. Reflect on how you created these causes in your present life. And so, just a point to hammer home as much as I ever can is that the quality of our lives are always going to be determined by virtue. Don't have to be Buddhist to get that. And when I talk about quality of life, that doesn't mean you get the nice car, you get a good job, relationship, etc. The quality of your life is the well-being of your life, how fulfilled you are in your life, the resilience you have in your life, the capacity to really live a fulfilling and meaningful life. That quality. And that's, whether we're doing modern Western psychology, whether we're going to Aristotle, whether we go back to ancient wisdom traditions, pretty sure something like the 10 Commandments have something to do with how you should live your life as well. You're just going to find again and again that the foundation of all well-being is virtue. So really straightforward approach, and we have it in our daily practice, is there's 10 really strong activities of body, speech, and mind that we can avoid. And if you can avoid them, the quality of your life is just transformed. So the 10 non-virtuous actions, and then the 10 virtuous would be what we want to encourage. We want to cultivate, we want to grow, we want to engage in. And so really understanding that process, that if we do nothing else than that, the quality of our lives improve, our well-being improves, life becomes meaningful. Life always becomes meaningful with purpose, with ethics, with integrity. It's how we get to feel about who we are and that our life is something that's meaningful. And then from a Buddhist perspective, that's how you can ensure that you maintain a continuity of consciousness from life to life, ensuring that you wind up with another one. One of the primary causes from our side is always the virtue. But there's many causes, and we can't sit here and think, well, it's just what I'm doing. There's so many causes and conditions that need to give rise for life that we get to have. It's nothing to take for granted. So we'll get into that as well. All right, let's get back to the text here. Other causes for a precious human life include practicing generosity, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. So they just brought together the other 5, the perfections. So the 6 perfections, we just recited that in refuge prayer. Generosity is number 1. Ethics is usually 2, patience, then joyous effort, concentration, wisdom. That's essentially the whole Bodhisattva path. But it's also the way that we can create conditions to stay on this path. So as well as praying to attain a precious human life in the future, so really planting those seeds in our mind stream, who do you know is creating these causes, and are you? So look around, and how many people you know that are developing concentration and wisdom in this world out there? And by wisdom, we're talking about interdependence. We're talking about understanding true causes of happiness, true causes of suffering, understanding that your whole life is constantly in flow, that you're always becoming, that there's nothing independent about oneself. Just on that level, not a lot of people are cultivating those simple qualities. And then generosity, patience, joyful effort, so forth. It's interesting. A lot of people will tell me, I'm impatient, really want. But not too many people tell me they're working on their patience. Yeah, I like to be a little more patient, have a little more emotional stability. But am I doing anything to create that? And so just this noticing of how here's some very basic lessons for ourselves and others, that if I'd like to have some emotional resilience, I'd like to have a little more peace in my mind, if I'd have less anger, less resentment, less frustration. Well, foundationally, that's patience. Patience is the antidote to those afflicted states. So we go, okay, you'd like to have less of that. Here's the prescription. How about you work on some patience? Hey, how about get out of yourself a little bit, work on some generosity? How about being a little more kind to others? And then we look around, how many people are doing those things? And you're probably going to find it's not a predominant motivator for most people as they get up in their day. And then people ruminate, they worry, their minds get caught up in anxiety and fear and projection. Well, concentration, attention, is going to be an antidote for that. How many people are doing that? So you can start to see, like, kind of right away how few people that are human in this world are actually engaged in self-care activities that can transform their mental afflictions, their struggles, their worries, and their fears. They often are caught up in some other types of practices to escape, to get distracted, to get away from it all. And while those might give a temporary respite, they're not going to transform that way of being. So one of the things to kind of look at is, is there a lot of people like us in the world that are out there that want happiness?
Seems like John may have froze on his end.
Mm-hmm. Are we good now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now, John.
Wow. Boy, you should have heard what I said. It was like the whole deal.
we we couldn't even read your lips.
Yeah, my little cord for the camera and microphone, guess was tricky. So what's the last thing you heard? Pop quiz. Anybody? Oh, you know what? I may not be able to hear you. No, I can hear you because I just heard Mark.
It was right in the neighborhood of the patience being the antidote of many afflictive states.
Oh, wow. I said so much more after that. It was
He
amazing.
did say a little
Six
bit more, but that's
perfections.
less. Yeah.
You were giving examples kind of this process.
Okay. Yeah. So we kind of noticed that people with rumination, people with anxiety, people, with worry and so forth, they, the antidote being concentration, taming the mind and training the mind. And so again, not many people doing that. And you just kind of go through this whole list of afflictions, of suffering, of struggles. And you may notice that there's very few people who may even be aware that there's some very foundational basic practices that can eliminate that. And how many people are even fundamentally aware that, chasing these things and events and relationships will never provide them, that happiness and well-being that they seek. It can only provide temporary moments of pleasure or well-being. And so in this sense, we start to recognize how rare it is just simply by noticing how many people in their quest for happiness are actually creating a lot of suffering. And then, we can also kind of look at that in our own lives. We may be doing some similar things, but at least we're working with it. Okay. The second reason is in terms of numbers. We can understand the rarity of a precious human life by comparing human and animal populations. So now we're really going full Buddhist approach, which says that all these lives that we can have can cycle, and that all beings, whether animal, human, and so forth, have Buddha nature, have a consciousness that can take a new life. There are now over 8 billion people on the planet, but there are many more mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, insects, and so on. It'd be difficult to count all of them, but one researcher's estimate is 20 quintillion. Okay, so a smidgen more. Even that staggering number is small compared to beings in the two other unfortunate realms. So Buddhist tradition says there are more hungry ghosts than animals and more hell beings than hungry ghosts. That should give you a sense of the rarity of human life. So again, that's from this 6 realms of existence, of Buddhist realms of existence. And realms, we always need to remember, it's not a place. It's a mind. It's how we perceive ourselves and our experience. And so very traditional meditation would say, if I've been around, since beginningless time, and I've had all these life forms, and, just think about how many ants there are in the world, how many of them compared to whoever even gets to be human. And then of all the humans, how few humans have such a life. I mean, that's the example. And you start thinking about sea creatures and insects and ants, roaches, etc. You can just see how incredibly few even become human, and out of those, how few have a rare and precious human birth. Yes, but remember that not all human beings have a precious human life with all 18 characteristics. Such people are very rare. Contemplate this and check, when you die and your mind travels on, is it certain that it'll find a precious human life? And the third reason is by way of an example. In the Bala Pandita Sutta, the Buddha used an analogy to illustrate the difficulty of obtaining a precious human life, and some of you are very aware of this analogy. Here it'll get explained quite nicely. So how often a rare and precious human life shows up, here's the analogy. Suppose a man threw into the sea a yoke with one hole in it. So that's like an ox yoke, that would go around its neck. Threw it into the ocean. And the east wind carried it to the west, and the west wind carried it to the east, and the north wind carried it to the south, and the south wind carried it to the north. So big, vast ocean, this yoke floating around. Suppose there were a blind turtle that came up once at the end of each century, so every 100 years, blind sea turtle. What do you think, bhikkhus? Those are monks. Sorry, get that too quick. Would that blind turtle put its neck into that yoke with one hole in it? Bhikkhus answered, he might, venerable sir, sometime or other at the end of a long period. And the answer, bhikkhus, the blind turtle would take less time to put his neck into that yoke with a single hole in it than a fool once gone to perdition would take to regain a human state, I say. So they're just trying to give you the vastness of just how incredibly rare this is. Pabonka Rinpoche explains that in this analogy, the sea represents our samsaric state, the turtle is ourselves, the blindness and ignorance, and the yoke is a Buddhist teaching. It is thus rare to obtain a human birth with the opportunity to learn Buddhist teachings. Now that we have this situation, we should use it wisely. Reflect on this example and its meaning in terms of your own life. So just pausing there, backing it up. Many of us, can't even make sense that you might have multiple lives, let alone have been an animal or an insect and then a human. From a Buddhist perspective, if that makes sense to you, this is just a view that is embraced, and then this is a very effective contemplation. But for many, that idea doesn't make, just doesn't resonate. What we can do is, again, go back to just humans. Let's look at humanity. We have over 8 billion humans on this planet. How many of them have these conditions of even a freedom of choice about what religion they would like, what spiritual practices they like to engage in? You look around at all the, continents, different countries. How many of 8 billion are mostly just trying to survive? How many are in war-torn places? How many people? I mean, when you look at the most populated countries, India and China, how many folks there live in poverty? How many struggle to even, get an education? And you come here to the United States, and then you start looking at populations here, and how many have no real teachings or access to just healthy emotional ways of living, let alone Dharma that can really teach them the path of well-being. And then you have all the people that have all the resources, have all the access, and are completely unaware of anything about these teachings. And then how many of those who have access, who have resources, who've heard of such teachings, have an interest in them? This starts whittling down pretty quick. And you look at our culture in the United States, and you sit there and what is really taught as for success, and what's everyone striving to get, and what are people spending their time doing to be okay? Are they cultivating generosity? Are they cultivating their ethics? Are they cultivating patience, joyous effort, concentration, wisdom? Are they actually engaged in teachings that can provide well-being, resilience, joy, freedom from mental and emotional afflictions? So then you start going, okay, well, let me just look around. How many people do I know or have seen or heard about have such mental, emotional stability, apply teachings like this in their life? And then I'm going to go a step further. Might get in trouble, but what the heck? How many people like to go to teachings, like to sign up to retreats, like to have philosophical discussions, but don't actually apply them in their life at all? And, the example that I've given a few times before is a talk I gave on meditation in Tiffin, Ohio. No, in Findlay, Ohio. Findlay, Ohio. Big college campus, Findlay University. Filled, packed house. Everybody wants to know about meditation. And I said, it's just wonderful to see so many people here that are interested in meditation. It's really kind of sad that almost none of you are going to do it. And that's just the truth, isn't it? And they laughed because they knew it was true. We're interested. But so this rare and precious human birth is, there's certain qualities. It's not just access, it's not just interest. It's a deep recognition of the potential that one has, and that these teachings are something that are medicine, that are applicable in our lives. And they engage in them, they apply them. And so just on that level, looking around at over 8 billion humans, and I'm not just talking about Buddhist Dharma, there's other traditions that have great Dharma. And again, I know I grew up Catholic, going to church, and we're all good about going to church on Sunday, and we're pretty much rascals, during the rest of the week. But thank God there's confession, and so even within other spiritual traditions, other teachings, other Dharma, how many people really embody the core of those teachings, bring them into their life, live into those values? How many people really emanate Jesus's values, for example? And so the reflection this week is to really start to see and look around and recognize the rarity of your opportunity. And one of the challenges that we've already addressed a couple of times is that we can feel, I think Carla was talking about responsible, right? And we're fortunate. And sometimes we can feel almost like a guilt because we have this, and then we might also be thinking we should be using it more and have a little guilt about how we're using it. But that's not the way to approach this. It's really starting to understand how many things had to come together, whether you believe in multiple lives or not. Things that happened centuries ago had to happen so that we can have these conditions right now. I mean, these teachings even that have survived, and people have practiced, and all the people that, you know, practiced teaching how to read and write, the inventions of books and paper and education systems. You start to think, there's a lot of things had to ripen just so. And your parents, your grandparents, their grandparents, you start thinking about all the things that have transpired so that you can have the body that you have, the life that you have, the conditions that have ripened. How many people have committed to practices and engaged in prayers, created conditions for things like this to happen in the future. And I often like to remind myself that we are the answer to their prayers, right? To their efforts. All these people put all this effort in for us. And so really starting to appreciate the, innumerable causes that gave rise to this. Pretty rare. And then noticing, others and their struggles. And we get a kind of a sense that this is pretty rare, difficult to attain. And then it's pretty also easy to take for granted, that, yeah, I'll be here tomorrow. And that's right, I was chatting with Alyssa earlier. Yeah, maybe we'll do that retreat next year. And we're like, well, if I'm alive, or if you're alive, or, if the retreat center's still there, she's why. The whole town of Altadena that I grew up near isn't even there anymore. And so it's really to say, okay, this is rare, this is difficult to attain, and I want to use it while I have it, because it's not just my conditions, other conditions need to be present. My two main teachers aren't physically alive anymore, and we can plan a retreat in the future. Doesn't mean, retreat center will be there, I'll be there, you'll be around. And yet our minds can kind of go, I'll go that next one, I actually do have a friend back in New York who's, waiting to do that next retreat with me. And, I don't do retreats there anymore. So I waited a few years too long. And, I don't know, maybe there'll be another opportunity sometime. But that's the reflection this week, is to really tap into the rarity of your situation and the difficulties that, of how many things had to happen for this. And I do want to read the conclusion. I'll get to Greta's hand right after that. Don't want your hand to get tired. The purpose of contemplating these points is not to feel anxious or hopeless, but rather to feel joyful that the life we have is extremely precious, more precious than money or gold. Even if we had all the wealth in the world, we could not buy enlightenment. But enlightenment can be attained with a precious human life. It's up to us. We can spend our life in meaningless pursuits or use it to do what is positive and beneficial, and refrain from what is negative and harmful. If you feel inclined towards the latter choice, resolve to spend your life in that way. Stay focused on this thought for a few minutes or longer to deeply familiarize yourself with it. So that's in the meditation. But my invitation is to stay on that thought throughout the day, noticing just how rare your situation is. And have some gratitude, some joy around it, not fear, not responsibility, not guilt. And recognize that you are helping others by cultivating these qualities. All right, pause there. We'll let Greta.
Hey, thanks, John. Really, oh man, this is really hitting, like it's really landing in my consciousness, this talk. So thank you so much. And yeah, I was thinking about when I first got clean and NA, one of my, I think it was like my second sponsor was a Buddhist man, and we started like a little, I think I had less than a year clean, and we started like a little meditation group at the Shambhala Union Square, Shambhala Center. And then for some reason we ended up parting ways, life got lifey or whatever. And I didn't return to consistent meditation until like a year ago. So 16 years elapsed, between like a commitment to it. I mean, I don't really know what to make of that other than what we're talking about, which is like, it's not guaranteed this opportunity is going to present itself where I feel very attracted and committed to the practice. And I was also thinking about like, since I hit a deer and I had totaled my car like a week and a half ago. The insurance is paying out now, like tomorrow, and I'm shopping for a new car. And I think about what you say about like the heated seats, and I'm like, ooh, is that like self-indulgent, to get like heated seats in my next car or whatever? But I'm like, I don't know, like, yeah, I'm speculating on that. I'm not, obviously that's a little off topic. And then
But get the heated seat. Yeah.
I deserve it. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. We'll see what happens. But the death at any moment thing too, every time that I keep forgetting to like meditate on that in the morning, and it's like, yeah, I couldn't have predicted that I would hit a deer, total my car, and be able to get the car that I actually wanted next when my car retired, which I thought would be another 100,000 miles. And it's just interesting. So, but I don't like the idea of like I might die tomorrow or whatever, but I'm willing to sit with that. So, and work with it. Anyway, that's a lot. I had to pack it all in there, but yeah, would love to hear what you have to say about that, if there is anything.
I think you just said it. And that's the thing, yeah, people don't like to reflect on the fact they may not be here tomorrow. And so they don't. And then they're ill prepared. And that's why it's so, so valuable to, spend a little time every day. And then, that's the big question. If you were to go today, how'd you live your life? And that's one of the indigenous people's, quotes is to make today a good day to die. What would it be like if I made every day a good day to die? That I am living fully with ethics, with generosity, patience, with understanding of our interconnection. And those kinds of teachings, are just so important. And one of my teachers says it's kind of neurotic to be fearful of the inevitable, and death's one of those inevitable things. Death is certain, time of death is uncertain. That's just the way it is. And so it's probably better to get comfortable with it because it's reality. And then what I have found, when I'm comfortable with it, I have a lot of freedom. There's no fear of death, and I'm free to live and make good use of my life. And that I find very helpful. Yeah. Ashley.
Yeah, that was helpful because maybe you can help me be a little less fearful, I suppose. I was reading A Precious Human Life by Khandro Rinpoche, and she talks about the six realms, and it was terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
reading it, the people getting squished by rocks and all these horrible things. And I was like, oh my gosh, how do I know I'm not going to encounter that after I die? And also thinking about like how I'm not sure it's more of the death process maybe that I'm afraid of, that maybe it will be painful or um you know slow and agonizing. And how do I deal with that? How do you get that kind of joy that you were just talking about, or appreciation and that feeling of, yeah, I'm ready.
Mhm. Yeah. So the, our human minds are so funny, aren't they? Is like, I can worry about something that I have no idea will ever happen, like a slow death, right? I don't know if it'll happen quick, don't have slow, but my mind will worry about the possibility it could go one way or another, right? And so that's one thing is to notice is that why spend any time on anything that is, just non-existent, right? So, so catching your mind going to those kind of slow, painful deaths, versus quick or whatever, is to kind of catch ourselves. I'm actually alive today, and I'm not being pulverized by a rock or whatever. But and it's funny because even when people get in an accident, often they're focused on, man, I got in this accident, I broke my leg, instead of I lived, I survived, I'm okay, right? And but with these death things many years ago, and I haven't done it in a long time, but I used to collect unusual deaths, in the news, you get some weird deaths, like somebody walking on the beach, their headset on, and a plane crashes into them and kills them while they're taking a walk on the beach, and things like that. And, you got, of course, the ones where a plane will go in somebody's living room. You're just sitting there in your living room, and, or a car comes in. And, so I used to collect really odd, unusual deaths. And I used to reflect on them just to remind myself that sitting in my living room where it's warm and cozy doesn't mean I won't die. and and so reflecting on that, the more that I did it with an understanding of valuing what I do have, that I am in this house, that I have this life, and I have these people in my life. I'm in the house that Laura built. It's nice. And so really working with acceptance of reality and treasuring in the midst of all the things that could happen, what is actually happening. And then there's some joy there, like, wow, of all the things, look at what is actually existent in my life. But then our mind can quickly get into how others suffer, and I shouldn't be like this when others are suffering. And then we lose our joy pretty quick. And so it's really maintaining and understanding that by cultivating these qualities in your life, you are at great capacity to help others. You're making a difference in the world. And that's important to maintain. So, yeah, just start reading the weird deaths so you can be uncomfortable all the time.
Thank you. That helped.
Yeah. 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 No, but the idea is to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's the point. Is and then to really treasure, that we are alive. And what we take for granted, what we take for granted. That's the big key here, is we take so much for granted that we already have, and the life that we do have. And then as soon as we value it, then we worry about losing it. And then we can't enjoy it. And so the the fear of losing what we have actually robs us of enjoying what we have while we have it. So they're really working with the fear piece of just recognizing we all have a terminal illness. It's called life. And, each day that we have with this rare and precious life is something to be savored as best we can. And that in order to savor it, we need to really appreciate ourselves and what we do. Because that's our big struggle, is recognizing our own value. All right, Kimberly, happy belated birthday. Kimberly's birthday was yesterday, along with Sam. Yeah, they're not the same age, we discovered, though.
All right. Well,
Oh,
it's
that's Chris, not
actually
Kimberly. Yeah.
Chris. Yeah. So, but yeah, lots of great things to ponder and think about. On death, I love following the Darwin Awards. Those are great ones to see how people have done
Right.
stupid things
The
to die.
Darwin
But
Awards, yeah.
I'm kind of remarking on like how often I've been exposed to the Dharma, but wasn't ready to accept it, wasn't really interested in it. And I remember many years ago I guided a trek in Ladakh and visited all these Buddhist monasteries for 6 weeks, and like I had no interest in the Dharma at all. I thought it was kind of interesting culturally, and then I end up in Carbondale, and whether the things that came together for me to reach out to you, and I am kind of baffled that Greta was kind of talking about how she had a sponsor as a Buddhist monk and then left for 16 years, and I just like that is I have so much gratitude for that, and finding the joy in having the opportunity to really to have this become part of my life. So, and the strange things that need to come together, and just in my own life and experiences to get us to this place. It's quite miraculous. And then on death, I mean, I think we really don't realize it because we're so conditioned to it, but we face death every time we get on the highway. We've all seen the car wrecks and the bodies at times lying by the side of the road, and if it had been 10 seconds later, it might have been us. And then Ashley's comment on reading, I was reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and that's some freaky stuff there, talking about the six hell realms. And it's not just about burning in hellfire, it's like getting continuously consumed by animals with big teeth, things like that. But anyway, yeah, lots of ways to live, and lots of ways to die. Thanks, John.
Thanks. Yeah, and let me address the scary part of that, which maybe Ashley was also referencing. These realms of existence and lower rebirths and that. Don't worry about that. Okay. One really has to be pretty much a sadist to go down into those realms with this life that we have. So I'm pretty sure none of you are that, hopefully. And so, there's a lot of that's written, and, but when and then I'm just going right off of Jetsuma Tenzin Lama, getting it direct from her teachers, that, in order to have those types of experiences, one would have to be, pretty sadistic and really enjoy giving pain to others toward, so forth. So, so I think you're safe on that accord. So, yeah, I don't value those kinds of teachings, which are kind of get people scared and you better be good or else this could happen, fire and brimstone stuff, but rather how much better your life is when we do well. And the causes of my suffering and mental afflictions and perceptions, but the greedier I get, the more greed I have, the less contentment I have. And so just really working with that in a very practical way. So yeah. All right, Alyssa.
Hey, thank you, John, and everybody. This is so interesting. And this is just a little share. Last night I was at a book club meeting, and the book is called Here One Moment. And the conversation was so similar to what we're having here, because the premise of the book is this woman comes on a plane and she's in sort of a traumatized state. This is the beginning of the book. And she points to every single person on the plane and tells them when and how they're going to die. And the rest of the book is all about these people who either take her prediction seriously and try to organize their lives in such a way as to prevent her prediction, or they don't take it seriously at all. And it was an interesting conversation that we all had about that. And just like you were saying, John, about how this is the inevitable. I mean, our birth is our death sentence. And many of the people in the book club, they all said, no, I don't want to know. I don't want to think about it. No, 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 no. And when it was kind of my turn to share and talked about, it's so important to talk about, and my own perspective about, well, just what I've learned from you from all these years, and the Dharma that makes sure every day is a good day to die, just in case it's the one in which you die. And that didn't go over very well. It was like
the rarity.
There was a hush that happened, and these are my friends that I've known for years. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Just a little share.
Yeah, our culture here in the United States, it's one where we hide death. As soon as somebody's dead, they cover them up. They whisk them out of the room. We don't, talk much about it. And there's some movements now in our culture about really, letting the body stay in a house, having people that attend to that and take care of the body, even having the family members wash the body, and just being a part of the whole death process and honoring that whole thing, which is, there is a bit of, awareness around that. But typically in our culture, it's, cover them up, get them out of the room, get the, mortuary on hand. Yeah, I got to sit with my mom in the hospital. They let me just be with her for some hours, as I did prayers with her and sat with her. It was really nice to have that opportunity. So, there's so much that we get fearful of, and mostly the unknown. And yet this is something we can know. We can know that death is certain, time of death uncertain. And then the third part of that meditation, death is certain, time of death is uncertain, is at the time of death, the only thing that will help you is how you lived your life. Right? So it's like from a Buddhist perspective, that would be karma. The karma you have created in this life will completely take care of you beyond this life. And so, the idea is, well, I'm going to really focus on virtue, on, good, healthy mental states, concentration, wisdom, and these things that will carry me through to the next one. And then for those without such a system of a next life, at the time of death, the only thing that's going to matter is how you lived your life, And wouldn't it be nice to die without regret? And I think that is a really good way to live, is to die without regret. That whenever it comes, you know that you lived your life in as meaningful a way as possible, and you showed up as best you could. And at the end there, yeah, okay, if it's it, yeah, we're good. And so, again, whether we think of karma, whether we think of rebirth, whether we think of this one life, they're the same principles. Is we have basic, fundamental mental and emotional health practices that can relieve suffering, cultivate well-being, improve our resiliency, our emotional stability, and improve our relationships and engage in our lives more fully. If it's just this life, or if we're in this path of awakening, these same practices will provide mental and emotional stability, health, well-being, resiliency, and the capacity to engage in life in meaningful ways that would carry you right into the next. So that's the beauty, I think, of engaging in practices that are practical, that are testable, that produce a result that's measurable. And then, you know, we can see the distinction, right? Whether we waited 16 years, right? And then, okay, wow, I get to feel like this. And I felt like that, whether I was, the difference between having an interest and what happens when I actually apply the practices of my life. What a radical difference. And so the opportunity is here now. But not, what's that? Tomorrow is promised to no one. And that, you know, that's not a Buddhist quote. Right? Tomorrow is promised to no one. And so really having an opportunity though, but the focus of this week is not the death part. It's really seeing how rare it is to have the life that you have right now, how the conditions have ripened. Compare the practices, the teachings, the life experience you have, and the way you get to apply remedies in your life, the way you get to cultivate well-being in your life, compared to just the mass of humanity that you read about, hear about, experience, and see. And kind of bring into mind to recognize that you are that sea turtle that met with that yoke on that ocean. And just how incredibly rare that is when you look out at the sea of samsara and all the other inhabitants of the ocean. How few are even know that life can be different. And so that will be the meditation, the observation this week. So encourage you to bring that into your day. Notice, you know, and but notice it with gratitude, not with guilt, not with responsibility that's overburdening. Both a desire to make good use of life that you have. Let's go ahead now and dedicate the merit of our time and energy here together. Taking a moment to recognize how rare it is to even have this gathering. People who spend their time on a Wednesday evening cultivating qualities of loving kindness, compassion, wisdom in their hearts and minds, so that they can be of benefit to others. And for those who care to, you can join me in the dedication. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow, and that born have no decline. increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re So Ha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re So